dangerous, large carnivore out there.
Yeah, I saw that bird pick a young deer off the road and fly away.
And it was just about getting dark, and we started panicking, running down this ridge, not really having any clue what was throwing rocks in our vicinity, good-sized rocks. And I stopped long enough to get a 357 out of my backpack and look back, and that's when I saw it. I saw one.
For a week, the town's Defiance was being harassed by a werewolf. And it's actually attacked two railroad workers, killed livestock, just a lot of weird stuff that was going on.
Good Sunday evening, Monster Xers. This is Gunnar Monson. Just got back from the Sasquatch Summit, and Shane was up there as well. And we are back tonight. We're having our friend of ours, Ed Brown, is our guest. So let's talk a little bit about what happened at the Sasquatch Summit. Johnny Manson put on another good show as usual. And we had tons of speakers from Ron Moorhead, Tom Powell, Tom Baker, David Ellis of the Olympic Project, Cindy Dosen of the Olympic Project. Scott Nelson talked about crypto. Like he's gone through Ron Moorhead's recordings and identified what he believes is a language. Very cool stuff. Plus, we got to hang out with cool people. Bob Gimlin was there. Guy Edwards presented, and we hung out with Guy, Tom Yamarone, just down the list. Of course, members of our Tillamook Forest Research Group were there. Larry Turner, Barb Olvera, Cindy and Jared Cadell. So, yeah, and we had a good time. Shane, what did you think of the summit this year?
Gunnar, it was an absolute blast. Like you said, Johnny Manson, who we've had on the show before, he just did another stellar job with a fantastic summit with all the speakers. Everything ran smoothly. It was just a pleasure being there, and I really thought all the speakers did well. I'm particularly proud of the Olympic Project and what they or what we shared, with the public and showing them some of our research and our ongoing work in collecting all this data and putting it together. And so kudos to Tom Baker and Cindy Dosen and David Ellis for just knocking it out of the park. But Todd and Diane Neese, they did fantastic. I just enjoyed all the presentations. And I know next year they've already announced they're going to have David Polides speaking, Jeff Meldrum. Of course, Limb Project will be back. I'm sure Ron Moorhead will be back, and there'll be some more exciting guest speakers to be announced down the road here. But one of the highlights for me was hanging out with Mark Mercell. He showed up. He was doing a presentation, actually, I think in Grays Harbor, on the Ape Canyon, event, and it was just a pleasure talking with him. And he will hopefully be a speaker there next year. I'm hoping. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it was fantastic. Really good time.
Well, one of the speakers that wasn't on the schedule but spoke Friday night was Mitchell Townsend. And if you haven't heard if Monster X people haven't heard what Mitchell Townsend teaches college level classes up in Washington, and found a bone pile that appears to have large teeth marks in it. It's going through this whole process from A to Z of eliminating known animals from the possibility. And then subsequently, a couple of his students found 2 additional bone piles that also had these large teeth marks in it. At least that's what he's putting out there. And I found that really interesting. I like the science behind what they're doing. I know that he's some people don't agree with what his conclusions are, or have stated that he's jumping points. I actually had the pleasure of speaking to his 2 colleagues, which are father and son, at the hopsquatch that Shane and I did in Portland, and they acknowledged that there were some gaps in the report of what, but assured me that the links were actually there. They just they're going back and redoing some of the report to fill in the information that was missing. So, what do you think of Mitch Townsend's presentation, Shane?
It was. I did find it very interesting. It's got a lot going for him. I just, you got to be careful that, this sort of, his presentation based on what he was providing, you got to be careful. You can't say absolutes, and not that he directly did that, but I think you just got to be really careful and make sure your science and everything is backed up. And so, overall, it was a great presentation. It was interesting. Hopefully down the road he can expand and build upon this and verify everything 100%. I have a lot of questions still on it, but looking forward to his future his findings and his future work. And he's open and he's showing people what he's got. I give him credit for that, and that he'll answer any question. You may not like it, but it is what it is. So he's doing what he's doing. Kudos to him. But maybe next year he'll be back with some new findings.
One of my favorite presentations was Cindy Dosen. I've seen her talk about her process for hair analysis and how she eliminates known animals. And of course, as she talks about in her presentation, is that none of the hairs that she's had are per se. She can't identify them as Sasquatch because she hasn't plucked a hair from a Sasquatch, but there's a growing base of unknowns that come up and look like human hairs based on the medulla and the way that the structure of the hairs, that they're not cow, they're not bear, they're not any known animal. So,
right.
And her process is very interesting to me. How she has developed this way of going through a process where she's eliminating every known animal, and so and for the most part, pretty much all we have in Bigfooting is interesting and unknown, because we don't have a type specimen. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wanted to mention as well, Gunnar, that it finally went public. Some of the recent findings with the Olymp Project in regards to a possible. Well, they're definitely nests. It's a nesting site. What made those nests is the big question. But Derek Randalls has come across some possible nests. And they're very interesting, and there's a lot of stuff, that was shared at the summit on this. just kind of a teaser really, because Derek could not make it to the summit this year, but I know that he was happy to share that, and it's really exciting because I think it's the possibilities are huge. Especially finding hairs there that were sent to Cindy Dosen and came back unknown, and they look rather human-like, but it's just really interesting. And so I know the summit attendees were pretty enthralled with some of the pictures shared and the backstory on it. So,
well, why don't you go into a little bit more detail about what was shared, and because as a key member of a core member of the Olympic Project, you have a little bit of more knowledge than the general public does, and let's talk about that. It was one of the highlights of the summit for me too. That was made public. Pictures were shared, and I know that Derek has talked some about what the conditions under which they were found and how it came to his attention and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll expand upon it a little bit. I'll keep it brief. Want to get to our guest here, Ed. But basically, Derek was contacted by somebody involved with the timber company, a very very large timber company, and he was like a surveyor. He would go out there and he would go in these remote areas that hadn't been logged in 50 plus years, whatever, and he would tag and mark stuff to be logged. And he was pretty remote up in Washington and came across a couple of nests that he hadn't seen in his 30 years of doing this, and he was just blown away. And so he had no idea what it was. He was kind of creeped out, got out of there, got a hold of Derek, and got a hold of some of his bosses and whatnot, and Derek Randalls and James Million went up there, and all of them were just blown away. What they saw, I think originally they found 5 nests. In total now, I think there's 8. These nests were, 3 feet, some were 3 feet wide and 8 feet long. Some were smaller. They were on fairly close proximity, but they were all made out of the local, the bushes and whatnot in these areas. I think mostly berry, and they were somewhat constructed on the ground. Though there is one nest in a tree that no one's actually gone up there to check it out. We're kind of leaving the area alone, but everything around this area in the 360 degree, it was snapped off. Everything snapped off. It looks like, it was used to construct the nests, but everything in this area is just snapped off. It's pretty incredible. And the nests some of them are a foot, in depth with twigs and debris. So pretty thick. And these nests are set up almost militarily like. It's just very strategic. And it's on a bluff. It's on a high, on a ridge point overlooking a small stream and whatnot. But you can't get into this area. I mean, if something's up there and you're trying to get up to this area, it's going to hear you coming a mile away. There's just no way to sneak in there. And at the point nest, there was 2 rocks, roughly softball-sized rocks, and they had scuff marks all over them from being knocked together. That's what it appeared to be. And there was hairs found there and whatnot. It's an ongoing research area, but it's just really fascinating. I mean, that's just a brief little synopsis, little tidbit of it. But that's the gist of it. No one's seen a Sasquatch up there, but these guys, some of the timber and whatnot, they were just blown away and kind of freaked out. They had never seen anything like this, and it was just pretty compelling in a lot of ways, but not absolute. So, we can't say definitively Sasquatch made these nests, but we're hoping to, continue to study this area and see where it leads us.
Well, the area is under ongoing surveillance, and the rock thing was pretty compelling to me. If I remember right, there was actually a nest made in some bushes that was not on the ground, and in conversation we were talking about how gorillas will do a similar thing. They actually teach the younger gorillas how to make nests, and they actually will make practice nests up off the ground. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and down the road we'll elaborate more on this for sure. I think it's a good talking point and something of interest, but yeah.
Again, nothing conclusive at this point, but really interesting. So, well, our guest today is Ed Brown. Ed is the host of a popular YouTube show, Sitting Down with Ed Brown. So, Shane, if you would bring Ed on.
Hello, Ed.
Hey, Shane. How's it going, guys?
Going great. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm excited to be sitting here with, my gosh, are you kidding me? Gunnar, Mr. Sasquatch Coffee Monson, and Shane Hardcore Corson. Are you kidding me? This is awesome.
Thank you, Ed.
Well,
it's great to be with you, too.
So how was your guys' weekend at Sasquatch Summit? I sounds like you guys had a great time.
No, we did. Sorry if there's a little bit of a delay. We've had some technical difficulty with some echoing, so I mute myself in between when I'm not talking. So excuse us if we're a little slower today than usual. We're trying to not hear ourselves over and over again. So so we had a great time. The only thing we're missing at the Sasquatch Summit this year, Ed, was you.
Well, I'll tell you what. One of these times I'm gonna get out there because I've heard nothing but good things about the event, what they do out there, and it's definitely on my bucket list. Maybe next year. In fact, I probably will next year.
That'd be awesome. So, Ed, for the Monster Xers that may not know you, would you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Ed Brown, I host 2 YouTube shows, one called Sit Down with Ed Brown, where I talk to all the big names. I try to get as many big names as I can, and, we've talked to everyone from, Bob Gimlin, Mr. Derek Randalls, Dr. Meldrum, and the list goes on and on and on. We've done, I can't even tell you, I don't even know how many shows we've done, to be honest with you. I have no clue. And then I also do Sasquatch Encounters, where I talk to just average, ordinary, everyday people who have had encounters, and I give them an opportunity to share those encounters in a format where I just basically shut up and let them talk. And it's such an interesting, I love hearing those real encounters. It's awesome.
And that's one of my favorite things too. And I do love your encounter shows because it's just like being there with the witnesses, and that's always one of my favorite things about Bigfooting is hearing people's encounters, because I have not had my confirmation experience yet where with the sighting, so I have to live vicariously through others' encounters at this point. But so what, Ed, got you into? What made you decide that you wanted to talk to people about Bigfoot, and where did your interest in the topic originate from?
Sure. The interest in the topic originated when I was little. I was in elementary school, and I remember seeing that famous Patterson-Gimlin film, and it's funny because I knew right away that this was a living, breathing, flesh and blood animal, and I just knew it even then. So I always had the interest, but I was never really into it until about 8 years ago. I had injured my back at work, and I was out of work for a while, about 8 months. And so I decided to write a book. So in order to do that, I wanted to get as much information as I could. So I researched it, and I read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reports, and I just fell into it, really hard. Then a few years ago, I got on Facebook and met a buddy of mine, Dan Lindholm, out of Oregon. He goes under the umbrella of Big Truth, and together we started the shows. So it was just kind of I guess I was in the right place at the right time, and it's not just me. I owe so much to friends like Derek Randalls who helped me tremendously. I wouldn't be where I am without Derek Randalls. I can tell you that. Dan Lindholm, you couldn't ask for a better partner. I couldn't do what he does, and he says he can't do what I do, but it's easy. I just shut up and let people talk.
Ed, you're well. First of all, you're fantastic. Your interview process and the guests that you get are stellar. I love listening to your shows because every time I listen, I learn something, and you got great questions, and just your whole method is fantastic. When you go into, if it's an encounter, with your encounter show or with Sit Down with Ed Brown, what do you do going in there to prepare, and what's your line of approach with these guests?
Well, that's a great question, and it's funny because it's changed over the last couple of years. When I first started doing it, what I did was I would have like a list of like 20 questions, and then as I asked them, I would kind of mark them off the list. But as I listened to the shows, it almost sounded rehearsed, if you will. So what I do now is, I honestly just bring them on, and then however they answer the questions, it just leads the conversation. I don't prepare in any way other than who my guest is, and I try to come up with an introduction. Other than that, it's all ab lib, just go with the flow.
Yeah, and that brings so much quality to your show too. I can tell because but it's very natural for you, and you make the guest feel so comfortable. It's a true, it's a special technique and a gift, and you got that, man. I really enjoy listening to you.
Well, good, and I appreciate that. That's a great compliment coming from you guys. You guys have a great show yourselves. And you said something that I was going to say to you, and I'm kind of mad you took my line. But I was going to say every time I listen to your show, I learn something new, and I think that's what makes a good show. When you can be objective and listen, whether you are on that side of the fence or not, is irrelevant. You're never going to learn if you're not open to other theories and ideas. So I try to be as open as I can, and I let people have the floor.
Yeah, and that's when people are listening to our shows, that's really what it's about. It's I know you don't do it, and I know we don't try to do it. Is make it about us. We try to make it about the guest. Whatever
right.
they want to talk about is on the table, and I love letting them run with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it should be. It's funny because I tell, and you can ask anybody I've ever had on the show, I tell everyone this before I start. I say, you talk as much as you want. You be as detailed as you want to be, because no one listens to these things to hear what I got to say. They want to hear what you had to say. So I put that out there with everybody I talk to.
Yeah. Now, Ed, you've interviewed a lot of people. Do you have any favorites that have stood out to you, and any of your guests, just blown your mind? Do you have any personal favorites?
Oh, I tell you what, I love them all. I really do. But I'm going to tell you, there is nobody will come close to literally sitting down with Bob Gimlin. We did a video. It's got to be. Are you kidding me? If you look at me during that entire interview, my jaw is literally sitting on the table because I just cannot believe I am sitting next to Idol, my hero in this thing, and definitely by far my favorite one ever. But again, I just interviewed Ken Gerhardt, and I had a great conversation with him because I was able to talk about other cryptid animals that I don't normally get to talk about on my show because I'm in that little box of Bigfoot, So I had a lot of fun with that one, and Ken was great. Ken was, we were laughing, having a great time, and that's what it's supposed to be like. It was fun. So, but literally everyone I've talked to, I've enjoyed every time. I kid you not.
Yeah, that particular interview with Bob was top shelf, stellar interview, very candid. I've sat down with Bob loads of times, and there was stuff that you got him to talk about I had never heard before, and one of the all-time favorite interviews I've ever heard. And so
thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Bob is what a pleasure, and I'm glad you got the opportunity at Beachfoot to do that.
Oh my gosh,
it's really, yeah.
I got to tell you the story how this came about. This is actually kind of funny. We were, we were talking to Bob, and you know how Bob is, man. He will sit and talk to anybody. I first met Bob at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference a couple of years ago, and I tell people this because to me it just tells what kind of character he has and what kind of guy he is. But I was talking to him, and he made me feel like, and of course this isn't true, but he made me feel like the only reason he came all the way to Ohio was to meet me, and that just tells you what kind of personality he has. So I'm at Beachfoot, and Dan and I are talking to him, and I mentioned, just said, I would love to have you on the show sometime. In my mind, I'm thinking maybe I could, do a Skype interview with him or something like that at some point in the future. He looks at his watch. He goes, well, let's see, it's 12:30 now. Can I meet you up at your RV at 1:30? I'm like, yeah, So it wasn't even like a planned thing. It's just the kind of guy he is, and Bob's just, he's my hero.
Mm-hmm. Ed, we got, I know one of the other interviews that you did earlier in the year, and he was actually a presenter, at the summit, was Mitchell Townsend, and he's actually in our chat room right now. But, yeah, that was another stellar interview. And do you mind talking about that a little bit? Because he did a great presentation at the summit. It was very interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add real quick that Mitch is also one of those guys he's just a great guy. When I went to Montana about a month ago, and I was going up, and while I was going to be there anyway, I was going to look into a skeleton, a deer skeleton that was found in a tree, and I actually, I reached out to Mitch, and I'm like, hey, man, this isn't my arena, so I was hoping maybe you could give me some advice. And he was just so down to earth. He's just like, yeah, here's what you're looking for. Call me when you get there and tell me what you see. If maybe we can collect them. We got there, and I, to be honest, I didn't feel like it was a Bigfoot related situation. So, I called Mitch from there. I said, man, I promised you I'd call you, but it's probably not what I thought it was. So, but he's so open to that. He was so glad to help. So that's kind of tells you a little about him as well. But during the interview, you'll notice that he's extremely, extremely intelligent. He's an outdoorsman. He's got that experience outside. He's got he understands the terminology. He knows what he's talking about. It's not he's not just opening up a book and looking for a phrase and going, okay, this fits, so let's use that. He already knows it. Very, very smart guy, knows the stuff. And I'll tell you what, I have yet to hear anyone give a logical explanation as to why what he is saying isn't accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So far, it's, as far as I'm concerned anyway, so far the evidence is standing for itself, and I'm pretty excited to hear where it goes next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know he's probably running into the same battles that a lot of citizen scientists and even some of the well-known academic people involved with this subject is getting science as a whole, academia as a whole, involved to look at this seriously. And I know I'm glad he showed up at the summit and gave a great presentation. Do you think academia will ever see enough to take this more seriously or get more involved?
I think it will. I really think it will, and I think we can thank Mitch for being a pioneer in that because, from my understanding, he's developed a couple different classes just for like adult education, furthering your education and understanding. And it's not just Bigfoot; it's the understanding what you're seeing when you're out in the wild. If you understand what you're seeing, you're going to have so much more fun. You're going to enjoy it more. It's not such a mystery, So I think Mitch for being a pioneer, and I think that it will catch on. I think you're going to see it more and more, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Yeah, fantastic. Who else, Ed, do you think is kind of, on the right track or a bit of a pioneer or is going about things the right way? Is there anybody out there, do you think, that is doing some real legitimate stuff that may help get us some answers?
Sure. I'll tell you what. I think I'm going to go back to Derek Randall's when I answer that question. Derek has you don't see a whole lot coming out of the Derek Randalls or the Olympic Project camp, and that's because you guys scrutinize it so much before you ever release anything that if you're going to release something, you're going to have a pretty good idea that it's something important, So I think that the approach the Olympic Project as a whole is taking on is excellent, and I wish that there were more researchers like that. You do get it is frustrating to hear, researchers every time they see and I'm not kidding you, this is a true story. I saw a video one time, and I don't know who put the video out, and if I offend anybody, I'm sorry, but there was this field of these twigs that were supposed to be 4 feet tall, and every one of them were snapped off at the same spot in this entire field, and so the wind obviously came through and snapped them off. They're all laying in the same direction, and this guy in this video is like, look what Bigfoot did. Bigfoot did this. It must have taken him hours, and I'm going, okay, I understand, you're excited when you see something you don't understand, but look into it first. Look into what you're presenting as evidence, and I think once you do that, I think it's going to make you a more credible researcher.
Yeah. I completely agree. It is. Anybody can throw anything on social media or anywhere nowadays and get the shock and awe, but it really doesn't it really doesn't do the subject any good. You may get a few likes or some nice comments or something, but at the end of the day, what does it all mean? And I think it's very important, like you said, Ed. You got to vet your findings. You got to vet this stuff. Not just within your organization or group or individuals, but outside that. And I know the Olympic Project is definitely doing that. And I know there's other groups out there. There's some really good groups out there and individuals for sure. But I think that's one of the biggest issues, though. I think social media, it can be a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And I think that...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hopefully down the road... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add that there's one more step to that whole process, and that is being able to accept constructive criticism. If someone has come across that and they know exactly what it is, be open to, okay, that wasn't Bigfoot related. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for letting me know. And I think that's just as important as looking at your own evidence also. And on the other flip side of that, there are certain people out there who just like to down people and harass people and things like that, and they should probably be more constructive also. But I digress.
Yeah, it can be a cutthroat world.
Yes, it is.
So one of the things that, and I'm going back to Mitchell Townsend's presentation, is that he has opened and challenged the scientific community to take his findings and run them through the grinder and to, refute his findings. So,
exactly.
How much more can you ask for somebody who's doing due diligence with the science of it and leaving it open? He's not stuck on the conclusion, and he wants it to be challenged so that it can stand up through other scientists reproducing, going through his data and challenging it. I know that he's working with Dr. Bendernagel and Dr. Meldrum and asking for input. What should I be doing better? And that was impressive to me. I had an opportunity to talk with him for a while yesterday morning, and he wants the scientific community to look at the results that he and his research partners have put together. So
sure.
To me, that to me adds legitimacy to somebody's efforts, is that they're not a closed door, they're an open book, and we need that in this field, because the burden Bigfoot researchers, and I've said it before, are, bemoan the fact that science is not open to looking at the Bigfoot topic, but we have to approach science in the way that they're willing to accept, and I think that Mr. Townsend is doing that. So kudos to him. I do appreciate
Absolutely.
that's the effort that he's put into that. So
I couldn't agree more. Like I said, Mitch is a great guy, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you have evidence and you're saying, go ahead, rip it apart, and they can't, then you've got something pretty good. So kudos to them. I agree.
Well, Ed, what is coming up with you? What else kind of projects are you working on? I know that you're busy with that. I know how busy it keeps us just doing one podcast. What's going on with you with your upcoming shows, and what else have you got going on?
Well, yeah, as far as the shows go, as of right now, we're working on a couple of Sasquatch Encounters episodes, and we're working out lining up the guests for that. I haven't talked to them personally yet, which I try to do with all of those episodes. I want to talk to them first so that I know kind of what to expect, and so we're working on that. But I'll tell you, I do have something, and actually I was hoping I could kind of announce it on your show, if that's okay with you.
Well, please do, absolutely.
All right. Well, about a month ago, Michael Cook, who is the founder of the Kentucky Sasquatch team, and we drove to Montana for the first ever Big Sky Bigfoot Conference, where Michael was a speaker and I emceed the event. And it was a nice little event. It was a small scale, but it was a lot of fun. Had a great time. But we were talking, and we met with another gentleman who was also a speaker. He's an author, lives in Washington, in Kennewick, Washington. And we met him, and we were talking about, how cool it was to have, to listen to these people who aren't real well known, but they're getting an opportunity to talk on a stage. So we decided, why don't we come up with an event where we can let the up-and-comers who aren't very well known yet share the stage with some of the biggest names in the business. So that's what we did. We put together a speaker list, which is going to blow your mind. At least it blows my mind. And so I'm going to talk a little bit real quick about my co-founders real quick, because we got one, Mr. Michael Cook, who lives in Kentucky, lives near Lexington. He, about 15 years ago, he had an pretty scary experience, and I actually interviewed him back in February, and he was a speaker at the conference. So we went down, and sorry, I kind of got off track there. I apologize. Michael founded the Kentucky Sasquatch team, which has been looking into encounters and been doing researching with all the encounters in Kentucky. He's done hundreds of encounters. Went out on many expeditions. He's got some pretty cool evidence as well. He got a really cool footprint that they found, and a lot of interesting things. But along with Russell Acord, who is an author out of Kennewick, Washington, and I'll tell you a little bit about him real quick, because he's not really in the Bigfoot community, but he wrote a book about Bigfoot called Footprints of a Legend, and he's a great author, really great author, but the guy's got a really good head on his shoulders. In fact, you can go to the International Bigfoot Conference Facebook page, and there's a link for both of them on there. But Russell's a great guy. We all kind of brought something different to this, and what we did was we created the first annual International Bigfoot Conference, which will be held in Kennewick, Washington, September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of next year. Our website will be up very soon. We were hoping to have it up by this interview, but unfortunately, just a couple little things are snagging it up, but we're going to have it up in the next week or so. But we put together a great list of speakers. We've got some events going on. We've already got a couple sponsors, as a matter of fact. Sasquatch Coffee, Mr. Gunnar Monson is going to be one of our sponsors, so we're excited about that. And are you guys ready for the speaker list, by the way?
Oh, heck yeah.
Hit us with it.
All right, here we go. I'm going to start with our up-and-comers. We have Miss Becky Cook. She lives in Idaho. She's an author. She has been witnesses, and she's written a couple books about the stories she's hearing. She was actually at the Montana event as well, and I'll tell you, she's a great speaker, great lady. She's going to be a lot of fun to have on stage with these big names. We also have Misty Alabaugh. She's become a very good friend of mine. She lives in Montana. She's been researching for over 20 years, and she's also authored 2 books, and she has 2 more coming out, as a matter of fact. So it's going to be a lot of fun to listen to her experiences and what she's got going on. Then we got Mr. Kurt Brown out of California. He lives down in California, and he's been researching. I'm not quite sure how long, but I know it's been a very long time. He's been out in the mountains. He goes out for sometimes weeks on end, which is great. I've known Kurt now for a while. We talk on the phone a lot, and he's going to be a great addition as well. So we're getting these 3 up-and-comers an opportunity to speak with guys like Stacy Brown Jr. He's going to be there. We were just talking about Mitchell Townsend. Mitchell Townsend's going to be there speaking as well. And, of course, Shane and Gunnar, you guys have agreed to speak as well, so we're excited to have you guys with us too. Todd and Diane Neitz are going to be there speaking. Derek Randalls will be there. Ken Gerhardt will be there. Adam Davies will be there. Dr. Jeff Meldrum will be there. I think we put together a fabulous list of speakers, and I just can't wait to sit down and just listen to all these guys talk.
Wow. Yeah, that's. I'm really honored that you asked us to speak, Ed, and to be lined up with. Well, what a cracking list of people. You got a little bit of everything. It sounds like coming into this conference. I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be the place to be and the place to go, and you're going to want to be there. I'm just jazzed.
I tell you what, I've been biting at the chops to talk about this openly, kind of in an open forum like this, because I'm so excited about it. And from top to bottom, the list is just full of people with great experiences, great knowledge, great ideas and theories and research, and it is going to be the event C, and I'll tell you what, I love all the events. Ohio does an awesome job. Mark DeWorth does a great job up there in Ohio. The summit, I haven't been there yet, but I know it's a good event. That's all I hear, good things. I just hope that someday people can see this as a part of that, and another way to get that education that all these great conferences offer, and that's our goal. But we want to do it in a way where we're going to give people who don't have an opportunity, because they just don't get asked to speak because all the names are so huge at all these other events. We want them to have that opportunity, and that's what we're going to get them. So every year we're going to be bringing in new up-and-comers and giving them an opportunity, and hopefully some of these up-and-comers will come back as stars later. So that's our goal.
Yeah, you're really bridging some gaps here with not just research, but some of these conferences and summits. You get a lot of the big names, and they're fascinating. But I totally agree. I love to hear from those that don't get a voice or a platform. And this conference is going to be unique in a lot of ways, just for that particular subject. Just getting these new and upcomers, those that are not heard, a chance to share some of their research, their ideas. This will, and I love every conference and summit that I've been to. I'm picky, but I've enjoyed every single one. This is going to be unique, though, just for that very reason.
Absolutely, and we did that. That was kind of what started this entire conversation, and we put this together like really, really fast. I mean, these guys these guys, Michael and Russell, they have put the nose to the grindstone, and we have put together a great event. I mean, we're going to have a class where people can come into it and learn how to make casts of their own foot. We're going to have door prizes. We're going to have, vendor booths. We've got it pretty well laid out, and I'll tell you what, I'm excited. I know these guys are excited. They actually wanted to come on with me today for this little section and kind of talk about it as well. But we didn't want to talk over top of each other, so we decided it was probably best we just do with one. But I'll tell you what, if you get a chance, look up the Kentucky Sasquatch Team and look up Footprints of a Legend, because I'm telling you, that's a great book. I'm telling you, this guy's a great author, and he's got a great head on his shoulder. He's been kind of our glue to pull this thing together. He's the leader.
Yeah. It sounds too, one of the nice things about conferences, and a lot of people go, well, what's shared at these conferences? What's new? Is it just a big, pat me on the back sort of thing? And I, most of the time, those that are making these comments have never really been to one. They're just looking at the names, the guest speakers. But there's a lot that goes on at these conferences, and one of my favorite parts of attending them is not just hearing the research and new ideas, but it's the collaboration. It's meeting up with those that that aren't known, that show up to these conferences and summits to share and to speak and to learn. Because I always get way more out of them than I bring. This past weekend at the Sasquatch Summit, I got to meet a lot of people that had encounters, are doing their own little research, and they're asking for help or ideas or just some collaboration. And something like what you're going to be putting on sounds just right up that alley where there'll be people can get a chance to collaborate and talk and mesh ideas together, and that is just that's stellar. That's my favorite part of attending these summits and conferences.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm glad you touched on that, because one of our focus points to throwing this thing was, all the other conferences are great, and I loved everyone I've been to, and they're awesome. But we wanted to have this one have a reason to exist. It's got a purpose, and that purpose is to bring the voices that aren't normally heard to a stage with some of the biggest names in the entire community in the business. I mean, how often can someone say that they shared a stage with Dr. Jeff Meldrum or Shane Corson and Gunnar Monson? I mean, that's huge.
Well, you're far too kind, but I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said before, I'm really looking forward to this upcoming conference. Are you still looking for? Are you still seeking out speakers, or you got a packed show already? I mean, it sounds like you do.
Yeah, our speaker list is packed. We are good there. In fact, it was funny because I didn't expect everybody to say yes, but I'm ecstatic that we got the list we got. I mean, one of my best friends, Derek, in this community, Derek Randall's, just like right away, snap of a finger, man. He's like, absolutely. Todd and Diane East, absolutely. Shane, you had to call me back. You had to think about it, and that's okay. You did call me back. You brought Gunnar in with you, which is great. So everyone I asked answered very, very quickly, and I'm just ecstatic, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like, okay, these guys know what this is about, and I've told everybody what it was about, and it's exciting.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's funny because I did have to think about it, and it wasn't because of I was like, wow, I was extremely honored. Don't get me wrong, I was extremely honored, but I was thinking to myself, I'm going to be paired up with some of my some of my heroes and whatnot. What can I provide and bring in? Am I worthy to be there? And you know what? You made me feel very comfortable. You gave me a lot of credit, which I probably don't deserve, but you did. And I was just like, well, you know what? I'm going to do this. Sounds like a blast, and it's something I want to be involved with, not just just the premiere of it, but I want to be involved down the road, and with you, Ed, because I think everybody jumping aboard like they did stands to you. Give credit to yourself, because obviously you're well liked, trusted, and everybody that jumped in on this right away was thinking probably the same thing. This is going to be stellar. This is going to be awesome.
And I'll tell you what, the venue we ended up getting was the Three Rivers Conference Center in Kennewick, Washington, and this facility can seat. I know it's over 3,000 people, which is huge, and obviously we'd love to fill it up, but we just want as many people as possible to entertain the idea of coming in and just hearing like you said, there's such a wide range of different theories and ideas and everything. And it's just going to be an awesome time. And like I said, we're going to have our website up very soon. We're putting it together. I'm looking at it right now. As a matter of fact, it's just not ready to throw up yet. But man, this list of speakers in a facility like that, we should have a very good time. And in that location, I mean, we're talking in the Tri-City area, not too far from Walla Walla. Spokane, who draw a lot of people from there. We're hoping to draw a lot of the locals in as much as we can, because they don't get a chance to go to the Ohio conference. They don't get a chance to go all the way over the coast to the summit. So I'm hoping that just by picking this area, we can help people as well.
Ed, this is Gunnar. Hey, I'm honored to be invited to speak at your conference as well. And I think it's cool because I like you said, one of the cool things about doing Monster X is I get to talk to people that I might not otherwise get to. I was talking to some of our members in our Facebook group this week, and there's lots of researchers and stuff in there, and I get to talk to them about. I was talking to Vic in Arizona this week about his research, and he was sharing stuff with me. We're talking about collaboration versus competition, which is my kind of Bigfoot researcher mantra. That is, if we can work together and share information and every time that I run into somebody that isn't, a lot of people are doing things very under the radar. Our Tillamook group has a lot of information and is doing things the right way, but we don't share a lot of things publicly. We do, like we said, we work very closely with the Olympic Project, and it's fun to go out and talk to people that are out there doing field research and doing cool stuff, and we find when we share stuff, collaborate with other groups and other researchers, that our information matches up a lot of times with what they're finding. So it moves things forward very rapidly when you get people collaborating versus competing. So it's I'm looking forward to this kind of event and that aspect of it, to be able to sit down with people that are doing field research and we haven't heard a lot from. So kudos. I know that you asked me about. We talked about Sasquatch Coffee being a sponsor. Are you still looking for sponsors for your event?
We absolutely are. We're going to, we definitely want to get as many sponsors as we can who might be interested. We're looking for door prizes. We're looking for, financial help, to bring in the speakers and things of that nature. So we're definitely looking for anyone who wants to sponsor, anyone who wants their name out there. And we've got some really cool things lined up to help our sponsors as well. Between speakers, there's two large TV screens up on the back of the stage. And between speakers, all of our sponsors are going to be, scanning through those screens, so people are going to see it all the time. So, we want to offer as much as we can. We're going to put it on our webpage. We're going to mention it on our Facebook page. So, absolutely. And also vendor tables. We're going to be looking for anyone who has something they want to come down and share at a vendor table. We're going to be, on our website has that as well, a place where you can click on that and go right in and get the information.
That's awesome. So I know that Sasquatch Coffee will have a vendor table there and have a presence, and we're honored to be part of be a sponsor of the inaugural Bigfoot International Conference. I got to get the name down right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
International Bigfoot Conference, and we do actually have another sponsor already as well, Creature Replica, with the company that makes those really awesome little miniatures. Those little Bigfoot monsters. Those guys, Gene St. Jean and Mr. Byers, they do such a great job with that I had to invite them as well, and they were excited. They said that they couldn't ask for a better possible event to first sponsor. So we're excited to have them as well. So Creature Replica will be there. They'll have a booth. Sasquatch Coffee so far, so those are the two we have so far. But again, we've only been doing this. We've only worked on this for a month, so we've got a lot of time, and we're going to bring in more and more and more. This is going to just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, Shane and I have already been talking about what our presentation is going to be about, and I know that we want to do something that blows people out of the water. So you can look forward. We're glad that we have this much time to prepare. So
absolutely, and I expect no less from you guys. You guys should be blowing people out of the water. And Shane, you were talking about how I maybe built you up too much or whatever, and I'll tell you, you are literally one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And I met you at the Beachfoot, and it was just a pleasure to just hang out with you and talk and draw on your knowledge, and I'm glad that you decided to express that knowledge with the attendees at the first annual International Bigfoot Conference. So trust me, it's well deserved, and I'm excited to have you there.
Oh, well, like I said before, I really appreciate it. Very honored. I'm, can't say enough about including me in on this, and we will definitely bring our A game and hope to, collaborate with other individuals and groups and just enjoy the time there, because it's going to be something special, no doubt. Ed, I was going to kind of switch gears just a little bit. I do want to talk about the conference more, but what do you do any of your own research at all? And also, what is your view on Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the phenomena?
Wow, that's an interesting question, and I kind of had a feeling that was going to be asked. And it's funny. I asked Ken Gerhardt just about the same question. What do you think this Bigfoot thing is? And I'm going to steal his answer because he's so right. It's like, well, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, this is what I think. On Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, this is what I think. It's such a mystery to me that I really don't know. You look at the Patterson film and you say, okay, that is an animal that has a lot more human characteristics than ape characteristics. It has the hair, and it has the brow, the sagittal crest, all that, like an ape does, but it still has more human characteristics. So I have to go along. I guess if I were cornered, I'd have to say a relic hominoid. I think it's a relic human, basically. So with that being said, I do some research. I'm not one of these guys to get out every weekend. I wish I was. I wish I could, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. Back in February, as a matter of fact, I went down to southeast Kentucky, and I had an interesting, I'll say, experience myself. I'm very careful not to say that what I saw was a Bigfoot, but I will say that what I saw made absolutely no sense, and it wouldn't make any sense for anything else. I'll put it that way. So it was an interesting experience.
Wow. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that experience?
No, here's what. Basically, we went down there, and doing what I do, I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of people. And I had heard 5 or 6 different stories from a pretty tight area down there. And these are people that don't know each other. They've never heard of each other. They're telling me the same story. Their descriptions are almost identical, depending on, like, one said that she thought it was darker. The other one said he thought it was more brown, but the one was in the shadow. One wasn't. So taking that in consideration, I found enough that it had me curious, and I had to go check it out. So we went down, and unfortunately, we picked probably the worst day we possibly could have picked. And on the way down, it started snowing, and we ended up getting about, oh my gosh, it had to have been 13 to 15 inches of just ice and snow. It was just miserable. So I get out the next morning, and I'm got my binoculars on. I got a really nice pair of binoculars, and I'm looking around, and above the cabin where we were staying, I saw what could have been a trackway. Now, it could have been a deer. It could have been a rabbit, for all I know. But I wanted to get up and take a look at it. So I try to make my way up this mountain, and I am having absolutely no luck at all. Now, Shane, you've met me. I'm 6 foot, 225, 230 pounds. I'm not, the mountain man look, but I'm fairly agile, and I struggled up this mountain, and at one point I was actually on my hands and knees climbing up this side of this hill, and I heard a very definitive, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was definitely a solid piece of wood hitting a solid piece of wood. It sounded like two baseball players just hit their bats together is what it sounded like. And I froze. I'm waiting for it to happen again, and after a few seconds, I turned around and looked in the direction of which I heard the noise. So I got my binoculars on, and I'm scanning the other mountain on the other side, and there was a definitely bipedal figure walking down the mountain. And I can tell you, as much trouble as I was having in climbing this mountain, this thing was having absolutely no problem whatsoever walking down the mountain. It definitely wasn't a bear. Had it been bears do occasionally walk on 2 feet, but they won't walk down an incline like that because the weight would just pull them forward. Could it have been a person? Could have been, but I don't know how a person would have walked through that stuff as easily as this thing was walking. And I watched it for a minute, and it's so funny because I had a camera right there. I had a camera right around my neck, and I talked about this, about the psychology of this, because why didn't I take a picture? And in my mind, I was thinking I had to figure out what it was I was watching. What am I looking at? Is this a Bigfoot? Is this a person? What is this? So I don't know, but it walked into a bunch of trees, and it never came out the other side. So I don't know if it turned or what, but it never came out the other side. But I watched it for probably 7-8 seconds, I guess, as I walked down this mountain, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. It makes no sense to be anything else. But I couldn't make out any detail, so I can't say it was.
Yeah. And that's
so it's just an interesting story.
Yeah, but it's a perfectly honest answer to you don't know what it was, but it was, you said it was weird. It was peculiar and strange and didn't make sense.
Well, it was funny because if I were to try to compare what I saw to Patty's arms were swinging, pretty well. This thing's its arms weren't swinging. The arms were literally straight down to the side, and it was just walking down this mountain with no problem whatsoever. And I don't know how that's even possible when I'm literally on my hands and knees climbing the mountain I was on. It just doesn't make any sense in my head. So there was absolutely no way I could get over there. The conditions were just too bad. I wanted so bad to go over and look for tracks or something else. There was just no way I could. It was impossible. And it's just an experience that in my mind, I personally believe what I saw was a Bigfoot, but that's just my own belief. I can't prove it, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, no, it's fascinating too, though. Coming from you and hearing, and this is what I love about doing these shows. You hear stuff like this, and it just it's just very interesting stuff. And I appreciate the fact that you don't go out and scream Bigfoot. A lot of people go, I saw, and you get down to the nitty gritty, and well, I couldn't say definitively, and it's just an honest answer though. But that's just the way it is. So
trust me, there's a lot of people who want me to say I saw a Bigfoot, but I refuse to. I can't. I'm not going to say it until I know it, and even though I feel it, that the odds are definitely in the favor. I still don't know. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense. So.
Yeah, I would imagine you may be going back out that way sometime again.
Absolutely. In fact, I've been given an opportunity next month. As a matter of fact, I don't know that I'm going to make it, but I may go back down in the same area, which would only be literally 10 months after I saw it. So it's possible that I'm going to go back down.
Oh yeah, if you do, I know I'd sure love to hear about it, even if you find nothing. But just to
Absolutely.
hear of your adventure, that'd be awesome. Got another question for you there, Ed. And this is in regards to research. Do you think research is moving forward? Do you think we're backsliding, or is research gone stale? I mean, what's your thoughts on that in general?
Well, I'm going to give you an honest answer, and it's probably not going to be one that most people are going to want to hear. I think it's gotten stale, but I think there's a reason for it. And what we've done as a community is we've managed to alienate each other and turn our views into, and I don't know any other way to compare it except to religions. We have all these different views and opinions, and when you try to discuss someone else's view, people tend to get mad, and it causes, issues, and people get mad at each other. And we've got to, as a whole, we've got to come to an agreement that says, okay, I may not agree with you, but I'm interested in what you have. If we can't do that, we're never going to move forward. And that's unfortunately, that's my opinion, and that's why I'm trying so hard to bring to the table. I just want people to be open and just listen. You don't have to agree with what I say. Just listen, and vice versa. Yeah.
And I think a big step in doing that, it will be on display at the International Bigfoot Conference. I think this is going to be a positive endeavor for this very reason, is just to listen and get a variety of knowns and unknown speakers a platform. Do you agree with that? I mean, this conference, I think that's going to be one of the main themes, I would say.
That was the entire focus from the very beginning. So we are going to be, giving. We open the floor to anybody. I don't care if you're what your views are. If you believe that what you think is real, share it. And you mentioned it a little while ago. You were talking about how you learn from something. I think it was Gunnar mentioned when someone says, "Hey, I found something odd. This is what I found," and somebody else says, "Oh, I found that too." If you're not expressing your views, you're not expressing your opinions, other people aren't going to hear that, and there may not be any correlation made. So, that's going to be our focus, is bridging that gap. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, and then if you call yourself a researcher, or you're an enthusiast, or you take this subject even slightly serious, you have to have an open ear. You just have to. You can't be so close-minded, because no one's got a Bigfoot in their back pocket. No one's got definitive proof. And there's a lot of stuff out there. There really is a lot of stuff out there, a lot of good people doing diligent work on the subject. And if you're so close-minded and conceited, because if you're not open-eared, you're basically kind of conceited. You're saying, your opinion and your ideas and your findings don't matter to me, but here's what I got to say,
Absolutely. And it goes back to that, I don't care if you believe what my theories are, but if you're not able to listen to those, how can you grow as a researcher? How can you even call yourself a researcher, really? You can't, because you're too closed-minded to be considered a researcher. Can you imagine if science did that? I guess they kind of have on the Bigfoot thing, but in other areas, if if science didn't take things at least seriously, nothing would have been discovered, you know, or I don't know, it's like a horrible analogy, but I know what I'm trying to say, I just don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up science, because that came up, and Dr. Bendernagel is very much, you know, frustrated with his scientific colleagues regarding their failure to look into the large amount of evidence you know, that exists for the possibility of a undiscovered species here, which we, you know, call Sasquatch or Bigfoot. So I think it's kind of the same thing as you're talking about. You know, that I think there's a thing in science now where there's money involved, where it's hard for people to go outside the box, because, you know, they're part of their research relies on funding, and so you have to toe the line a lot in. And I've talked to Dr. Meldrum in the past about his involvement in the topic has actually cost him, you know, personally, financially. So
right,
it's a tough deal to and science does, in some ways. Science, there was a lot of quotations used in what science actually is, the ideal of science versus what science is at this point. You know, the science is always about exploration and always challenging the status quo and advancing our knowledge. But it has kind of become stagnant in that, and I think that's a lot of that has to do with financing and you know, people trying to
Absolutely.
keep their tenure and stuff like that.
I couldn't agree more. And I guess if I had a message for scientists, I would say, you know, you have to do one of two things. You have to, one, explain what thousands of people are seeing all over, you know, North America and the world, or you have to explain why there's this mass delusion that people are experiencing. One or the other, because there's really no in between, you know. So I choose to believe that it's not a mass delusion. You know, I think people are really seeing something, and it's piqued my interest.
Well, the thing is, a delusion doesn't leave hard evidence behind. So doesn't leave footprints, doesn't leave, you know, hair that comes back as no known animal, doesn't leave teeth marks on bones. I mean, so it's not that, you know, it's not. If anecdotal stories was all there was, then it'd be easier to brush off the idea that everybody is just having a shared hallucination. But
exactly,
you know, there's all kinds of evidence to support that there's something to what people are seeing. So
absolutely, I couldn't agree more. That's well put.
Ed, where can people hear you? Where can they find your shows and hear you? And you know, what's the best way to find you?
Great question. You can go to YouTube. Just type in under the channel Big Truth. That's BIGTRUTH, one word, and you'll find not only my shows, but you'll also find a lot of great stuff that Dan Lindholm's doing. He's doing some great research out there in Oregon, out there near Klamath Falls, and I'll tell you what. You're going to find a lot of really cool stuff there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you always have great guests and great shows and great topics, and your line of questioning and interviews are, you know, top notch. And you know,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're going to have tons of stuff down the road here. I'm sure you're going to be promoting this conference. Monster X will, myself and Gunnar will help promote it. I think it's going to be an amazing event. Do you have any plans, though, down the road for, are you writing any books, anything else like that coming up? I think I'd love to read a book about, you know, your interviews and the topic of Sasquatch in general. I think it would be fantastic.
Well, that's an interesting question. I do have one book that I have published already, and I don't really pitch the book, unfortunately, just because my publisher has a price so high that I feel like I'm taking advantage of people. So I try not to push it too much. So very few people even know I wrote a book. But a second book on my interviews, I think that's an interesting idea. As of now, I will think about it.
yeah, call it,
it's a good idea.
Yeah, sit down with Ed Brown. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Sitting down with Ed Brown.
Yeah, it would be. It's an interesting concept, and I know that I find it fun. And when I said earlier that I truly enjoyed talking to everyone I've talked to, and that includes, the Rick Dyers, the team trackers, this is everybody. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to all these people, and Rick Riolo, and the list just goes on and on. I mean, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I've talked to so many people, and I've listened to so many different views and theories, and I love it. So sharing that in a book form is actually a very good idea.
It's funny because you mentioned Rick Dyer, and one time we were giving away coffee to someone in the chat room, and the chat room, and Rick actually won the coffee and did a big YouTube video about it, and then I ended up talking to him about it and saying I should have sent him a bag of an empty bag, but
I'll tell you,
the guy is very engaging. I mean, it's interesting because he's interesting to talk to. That's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, he's become one of my friends. I can call him up anytime and just chat with him. He's aware that I don't feel that what he did was good for the community, wasn't good for the Bigfoot subject. It put us all in a bad light. He's aware that that's my feelings. But on the same token, you have to look at Rick as what he is. Rick is a showman. Rick is the Barnum and Bailey of the Bigfoot community. So, and I maybe I shouldn't be saying this on the air, but if you fall for what he's doing, you should be more ashamed of yourself than him. And but that's just my view on that. But Rick's a good guy. You're right. He's very engaging. He's a very, very nice guy to talk to. But what he did was wrong in my opinion.
I'll agree with you there. Well, we're winding up here, Ed. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the Monster X listeners?
Absolutely. Send all the hate mail to Dan Lindholm for the Rick Dyer comments. No, hey guys, I've had a great time, and I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to come on the show. And I was ecstatic to use your forum as a platform to announce the conference. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be huge. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be educational. So September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, Kennewick, Washington. Our webpage will be up soon. We're going to be posting all that information in our International Bigfoot Conference Facebook page. So make sure you go there, click like. Let's get as many people in there as we can. Stay tuned because there's going to be more and more news coming as we go. So I thank you guys for the opportunity to share that news.
Well, we appreciate that you came on Monster X and revealed for the first time the International Bigfoot Conference is coming. So, and we'll be promoting it here. I did want to thank everybody that has joined us on Facebook, in our Facebook group, Monster X Radio on Facebook. We just have crossed 5,300 members, so we continue to grow in leaps and bounds. If you're listening to this program and you're not a member of our Facebook group, send a membership request. Look up, like I said, go to Monster X, look up, or go to Facebook and look up Monster X, and you can request membership and join us in the Monster X community. Again, I'd like to thank our guest, Ed Brown. Be sure to check out his YouTube shows, Sitting Down with Ed Brown and Bigfoot Encounters. Always entertaining and great, and a great guy. And I thank you again, Ed, for joining us this evening.
My pleasure. It's been my pleasure. My pleasure.
And with that, we will sign off. This has been a Monster X Sasquatch Summit weekend edition with our guest, Ed Brown. And we look forward to talking to you again next weekend at 4 p.m. Pacific on Monster X Radio. Thanks, everybody.